You're sitting alone watching TV in the middle of the night. It's warm outside, summer is approaching, but inside, you feel chilly. You know something's off, something's not right, something is going on. You're not sure what it is. It's scary. Your window is wide open, and a weird gust of wind enters. You look over to the window, you stare at it for a second, and then you see it. In the distance, a pair of eyes is staring right at your house. You run to your window, you look around, nothing. Nothing was there. Nothing is there. It must have been a trick of the light or just your imagination. You need to go to sleep. You go to your daughter's room, you tuck her in, and you give her a kiss on the forehead before you go and sleep next to your wife. It's a restless sleep until around 4 a.m. you hear your daughter's window in the room next door creaking open. Footsteps, calm and steady. And that's when you realize there's an intruder in your house. This is the case of the Golden State Killer. He has many names: the Visalia ransacker at first, the East Area rapist, the original Night Stalker, and finally, the Golden State Killer. Joseph James D'Angelo was born in 1945 in New York. He was named after his father, Joseph D'Angelo, Sr., a renowned pilot in the Air Force during World War II, and his mother, Kathleen D'Angelo. She was a waitress at Denny's. His parents divorced when he was in 6th grade, and his mother moved out with his stepfather. During high school, he would move to Sacramento, and then he would attend California State University and major in criminal justice. How ironic. He would then join the army and participate in the Vietnam War, where it is believed he developed a taste for death. In the 60s, he was engaged to Bonnie Cowell, but the engagement didn't last. Bonnie was the one that called it off, and allegedly it broke Joseph's heart. All the reliable sources don't have any more information on this engagement, but it is speculated that he was violent towards her, and it wouldn't surprise me. Later, during his crimes or during his murders, he would be heard saying, "Damn you, Bonnie, why did you have to do this to me? Come back, Bonnie. Bonnie, Bonnie, Bonnie." He would get married in 1973 to Sharon Mary Huddle, and she would give birth to his 3 daughters. For some time, he was a licensed police officer, but he was fired in 1975 for shoplifting. The police report states that he threatened the police chief and his daughter by standing outside their house in the middle of the night. He was first known as the Visalia ransacker from 1973 to 1976. The crime started in 1973. He was just a regular burglar. He would choose a random house near his house or in a very far away neighborhood. He would carefully learn about the family or the single mother or anyone who lived in that house. He would map out their schedule, would make a perfect plan, and he would break in, threaten the victim with a gun to their head, and steal whatever he could get his hands on. His first recorded murder happened in 1975, Whitney Lane, California. He was 30 years old. It was an attempted burglary turned murder. It was also an attempted kidnapping turned murder. And it all happened on September 11th, 1975. Joseph broke into a random house this time. He didn't plan it very well. He thought that everyone would be asleep. But he would find Beth Snelling, a 15-year-old girl, staring right at him. He would attempt to kidnap her, but he would get caught by the father. Joseph, unfortunately, was armed, He would shoot the father 2 times, in the heart and once in the shoulder. And Claude Snelling, a college professor and a very nice father and husband, would die only a few minutes later, while Joseph would escape, leaving Beth trying to salvage whatever he did. And 2 months later, on December 2nd, Joseph, masked and armed, broke into a detective's home. William McGowan was sound asleep when he heard loud footsteps in his garage. He never got intruders in his house. Everyone knew he was an investigator or a detective, so nobody dared to break into his house. This must have been someone very dangerous. He would grab his gun and tiptoe to his garage. With a flashlight in his hand, he would shine it on the intruder. The intruder wore a ski mask and was heavily armed. But as William would point the gun towards Joseph, he would feign surrender and drop to his knees. William calls for backup, but Joseph immediately takes his gun back and shoots the flashlight, leaving William disoriented and in the dark. He would jump the neighbor's fence and under the dog fence, and the police would later find a flashlight, shoe tracks, and a sock full of coins at the crime scene. He wasn't the Visalia ransacker for very long. He probably broke into a maximum of 10 homes, but he was a very feared burglar because of his dangerous and unhinged nature. He would then go on to become the East Area Rapist from 1976 to 1979. For me, the most disturbing detail in this case is that he always took little mementos or souvenirs of his twisted deeds. He would take a coin, a piece of paper, a family heirloom. I think he was a thief at heart. And he would leave something in return. Always a note or a letter or something with no value to it at all. His most famous letter ever left in a victim's home was about his experience in 6th grade, where a teacher made him write lines for simply talking in class. He said it made him feel humiliated, and to this day, he still resents that teacher. In 1976, he would move to Sacramento, where he would move from burglary to full-on sexual assault and murder. Again, he would choose middle-class families, stalk them, and break into their homes at the perfect time. And to show you how non-repetitive he was, here is a list of time-framed places where he would go. June 18th, Rancho Cordova. July 19th, Carmichael. August 29th, Rancho Cordova. September 4th, Carmichael. October 5th, Citrus Heights. And he would do irregular rotation between these locations and others less frequented by him, like Orangevale and Parkway. He made sure to never leave a real clue. He would leave fake ones like those little notes we talked about. The police never knew what to expect. And from 1976 to 1979, so in the span of 3 years, Joseph broke into 50 homes, and almost 27 of them resulted in a murder or an assault, and sometimes both. He would then also gain the alias of the original Night Stalker because he would move to Southern California, and the original Night Stalker was born. This is where he felt completely invincible, and he would start calling his old victims back to say one sentence and hang up. His most used one, and I quote, "Hey, remember when we played?" He said other things like, "I am coming back for you," or "Happy birthday to us," on the anniversary of the assault. It's truly, truly despicable. I'm going to take this time to tell you about, in my opinion, one of the most horrible stories of an SA victim who lived in more than 44 years of terror that he would come back to haunt her. So on June 25th, 1979, Mary Burward, a 13-year-old middle schooler in Walnut Creek, was sleeping peacefully in her room. when a masked man holding a revolver gun woke her up, and while shushing and threatening her, he assaulted that child. And he fled the scene, leaving her tied up. She would try to break free for hours before she finally succeeds, runs to her dad's room, who cries when he hears what happened. She goes, gives her statement to the police, and is taken to the hospital. She says no 13-year-old should have to find out what a rape kit is. She couldn't even go home if she wanted to. Her home was a crime scene. She could see the agony, the sadness, and the despair in her family's faces. It even drove her to madness. She felt guilty. She felt mad. She felt powerless. For years, she suffered from insomnia, anxiety, and PTSD, and always slept with the nightlight on, her doors and windows always closed. She never felt normal after that. Cheerleading helped her, she says, her friends also. Yet it would never change the fact that she was and remained the girl who everyone felt sorry for. It doesn't get better, because her dad, her support system, her rock in this world, would pass away at the age of 49 in 1982 of a heart attack. But Mary would also blame herself. She thinks it was probably of a broken heart. She would develop an alcohol problem in her 20s, and she would heal, or at least try to. She would join associations that helped people like her, people who lived through or survived an assault. She wanted to make a difference in the world, and she wanted for Joseph to get caught. A week after her 52nd birthday, she would receive a call. Joseph was arrested on April 18th, 2018. The killings stopped in 1986 and the case grew cold, but the victims, they never got the opportunity to forget their misery because the calls would keep coming. He would keep on calling and reminding them that he was still there, that he existed, and that he would come for them. Let's go forward in time to 2001. By this time, the case was already cold, but the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office finally made the connection between the East Area rapist and the Visalia ransacker, as well as the original Night Stalker. It was thanks to DNA evidence and also because of the modus operandi, which is operational mode in Latin, which is how he committed his murders and assaults, basically. So the East Area rapist, the Midnight Stalker, and the Visalia ransacker became one, the Golden State Killer. It wasn't until 2006 that Michelle McNamara, an American true crime author and blogger born on April 14, 1970, took an interest in this case. She expressed her fascination in her true crime blog called True Crime Diary. Her fans would be so interested, they would give their opinions, they would discuss it over forums, and it would become a widely known case once again. The urban legend, the Golden State Killer, the original Night Stalker would become relevant again. People would want to catch this man. There's no way he could still be roaming the streets at this instant. People were mad, and Michelle knew that. She had such a strong interest in the case that she would contact the lead investigator, Paul Holes. The lead investigator and her would meet, and they would discuss ways that they could catch this monster. They would finally come to a conclusion. If they ran the DNA from the rape kits into a genomics website like 23andMe and so, they would find relatives of the killer, or at least it would give them a lead to restart the investigation. Unfortunately, Michelle would die in 2016, but before her death, she stated that it was her death wish to arrest this monster that so easily got away with ruining so many people's lives. She's truly a genius and a hero, and it's thanks to her that Joseph is behind bars now. In December, FBI officials, with the help of Detective Paul Holes, uploaded the DNA profile to the personal genomics website called GED Match. And with the help of genealogist Barbara Ray Venter and her expertise, she would narrow down the list of matches and construct a large family tree. They would rule out so many suspects and it would leave them with 2. In the end, the first suspect was not even 44 years old, which was obviously incorrect. And the other suspect was Joseph James D'Angelo. Forensic teams were dispatched to his location to collect a sample of his DNA, and it was a match to all 51 rape kits. He was arrested on April 24, 2018 in Sacramento. He pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, and later by another county office with 4 more counts of first-degree murder. During initial questioning, he somewhat admitted to the murders. He referred to a split personality disorder and a different personality named Jerry. Well played. But no one believed him. He was later cleared by a psychologist and deemed completely aware and fit to attend court. Honestly, when I heard about his story, I was so disgusted by everything that he had done and that he almost got away with it for 44 years. Joseph is now 73, just so you know. Let me tell you about the sentencing, but before I do, I would just like to wish all the best to all of his victims. Most of them are still alive. I mean, he assaulted people who were very young. His assaults were especially towards women between the ages of 12 and 30. So most of them are alive and suffering from what he did to them right now. So he was sentenced to 8 life sentences, which is about life in prison for him because he's 73. But 8 life sentences is 8 times 25, which is 200 years in prison. But it's just easier to say 8 life sentences. He will live out the rest of his days in prison, and even the judge on this case said that he was utterly disgusted by this man who tried to play it like a frail old man during the trial so that he would, so that people would feel bad for him. This is the case of the Golden State Killer, of the California killer that sent chills through people for 44 years before he was caught. He became a legend. People thought he would never be caught like the Zodiac Killer, but he was. And justice was served, and it will be served. Until the day he dies, I hope nothing but the worst for him. Honestly, do you know how many lives he ruined? He ruined 64 people's lives. And that's not even counting the families of the victims. So, may you rot in jail, Joseph James D'Angelo. And that is the end of today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to me on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok
at CrimeBerry Pod 1.
I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next episode, which will be much more exciting. And goodbye.